Hey, Greg here for Party Foul. I got Scott behind the camera. We're going to talk about something that I've been sort of messing around with, the Circle Orgros, Warcaster Mohsar, the Desert Walker. I played him a little bit in Mark II, and I found him kind of fun. A lot of people seem to think that he got nerfed pretty hard in Mark III because his pillars got messed around with quite a bit. I've played a little bit with him and done a little bit of teching with him, and I don't personally think that the pillars are something that you hinge on in your early and mid game. They're like a late game play when your opponent has less activations to deal with them. But there's something that I thought of while I was going through teching with Mohsar, and I went and asked on the forums about this particular ability, and I got a locked thread, which meant that the last reply was the correct reply, and that meant that this is completely permissible. So what it hinges on is the Wold Warden's Animus, and the Wold Warden's Animus is called Wild Growth, and it is a 2-cost Animus, and it is self, so that means only the Wold Warden or the Warlock can cast that spell. And what it does is, I'll read you the card just so you have a full idea of what it is, and it is a AoE 4, center a 4-inch AoE on the spellcaster. The AoE is a force that remains in play for 1 round. Here's the important part of the text. The spellcaster cannot move or be placed after casting Wild Growth. Wild Growth lasts for 1 round. So, for some reason, I can't remember what my line of thinking was. I was like, cannot move or be placed. Okay, that makes a lot of sense because some circle casters can move pretty far and they can do place effects and that type of thing. And that means that a lot of circle casters can place 4-inch forests all over the place and be very powerful. But I was like, Mohsar, I've been playing Mohsar, and I was like, his Sands of Fate spell specifically allows him to replace a friendly faction model in his control area. And I was like, are those two things the same thing? So I went and looked it up in the rulebook, and they're 2 separate entries. Now, in the entry for replace, it does use the text place at some points, but there's a bold in the replace section, and it's only on the word replace, and there's a bold in the place section, and it's only on the word place. So I posted the question on the forums, this is the situation. Can you use replace in this situation? Like, cast the Animus and then use Sands of Fate to leave the Animus area. And I got a response from PG that said, yes, they're 2 different effects. You can do that. And then the thread was locked, which means that response is correct. So I started thinking about how to utilize that to my benefit. And Mohsar can have some big problems with ranged opponents. So I kind of came up with this thing, and I'm going to show you how it works. And I haven't had a lot of chance to experiment with it, but maybe you'll find it interesting. Okay, so here's the situation. We have Mohsar the Desert Walker. He's my Warcaster. We have a unit of Bloodweavers. I like to use them. They're rather inexpensive and pretty good for Sands of Fate targets. And I have a Wold Warden, which provides me with the Animus so that Mohsar can cast it. So I've kind of set up so that I'm playing the top of 2 against a ranged army that has a great range threat, and I'm concerned about them shooting my stuff, and I want to try to create some type of defensive barrier. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to activate the Bloodweavers, and I want to position them at a point that I can basically create 2 wild growths, say something like that. So the first one is going to be created by Mohsar, advancing 5 inches, and that is something that's a bit of a nerf. He was taken from speed 6 to speed 5. So what he's going to do is he's going to advance, he's going to make a wild growth. I'm going to position a Bloodweaver, over here. Then he's going to cast Sands of Fate to be placed here. Then he's going to cast Wild Growth to create another 4-inch forest. And I'm going to place another Bloodweaver that's going to be in command, because it's important. I'll explain that when we get to that. So that he can Sands of Fate behind the forest wall. And that gives me some protection in terms of reducing shooting. And then I could activate my Wold Warden and put another forest wall here if he tramples up here, if that's what I want to do. Or I could use my Sentry Stones to expand the forest wall. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is something you can do, it's permitted, you can put down templates and proxies and that type of thing. I'm going to position the first forest wall so I know where that's going to be. And I'm going to put the other one beside it where I want that. I'm going to activate the Bloodweavers, I'm going to run them. I'm going to run 1 Bloodweaver to the center of that template. And depending on how picky your opponent is, you can break out some of these widgets. So small base tells you how the distance is for the 4-inch. And I can measure that to get the exact spacing that I want there. And if he's going to be picky about this one, I can take out a small base proxy, put it there, and also measure that one to make sure that the distance is exact. Most people that you're going to play are not going to be that picky, and they're just going to let you drop down with things and be like, okay, my intention is to put that model in the center of that template, etc. As long as you're kind of careful about it. And these widgets you can get in a lot of places. Muse on Minis has some great widgets. You can get a set of those, and they have widgets for small, medium, and large bases. Now I'm going to run the rest of the unit, and it's important that the unit commander keep this model in command, because you can't target out-of-command models with spells, and Sands of Fate is a spell that targets a friendly faction model. So I'm going to run this model to here. And then I'm going to run another model to where I want Mohsar to end his activation. So say I want him there. And then I run the rest of the unit to wherever I want them to be. Say up here somewhere. Because maybe my opponent has great range threat, but not stealth outs. So now I'm going to activate Mohsar. He's going to advance his 5 inches, so he's centering on here. He's going to spend 2, to cast Wild Growth, his Animus, and he's going to create this 4-inch template that's a forest. He's then going to cast 2 to Sands of Fate and replace this model with himself. And like I said, that's permitted because it's not a place effect, it's a replace effect. Then he's going to cast 2 to cast Wild Growth again, so that he creates another forest here, so they're touching. And then his final spell he's going to do, he's going to cast Sands of Fate onto this model and replace that model. And you will notice now he's naked, because that was a rather expensive adventure to create that. It cost 8 Fury. But he also has a special ability called Maltreatment, and if I had activated the Wool Warden or one of the other War Beasts in his battle group, he could remove a Fury from that War Beast, cause the War Beast D3 damage points, and have a transfer at the end of his activation. And hopefully, when you've gone through all this trouble to create the forest wall, you've made it so that your opponent can't really get any relevant attacks on him. So there you go, there you have it. That's basically the Wild Growth forest wall with Mohsar. Do I think it's huge? No, it's certainly not game-breaking, but I thought it was extremely interesting because, like I said, Mohsar has a particular weakness against ranged armies. He has extremely poor defensive stats. 14-14 with 15 boxes is absolutely horrible.
Old man stats.
Yeah, extreme old man stats. So any sort of ability to mitigate that range threat is an additional buff for Mohsar. And I'm very interested in him and his potential to fight against jack spammy sort of lists. I hope he randomly gets a buff in January, but if he doesn't, I still think he's got kind of an interesting caster, and hopefully this adds something to his ability to play in a competitive atmosphere. Good luck.